And now comes the part where we say goodbye.
You are Locked On A's, your daily Oakland A's podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, A's fans, and welcome to Locked On A's, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the podcast. Well, we talk about your Oakland A's all year long. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully. I've been a baseball podcaster for a while now. I've been here at the Locked On Podcast Network for the last 6 years, and this year was my great pleasure being the host of the Locked On A's show as well. I did double duty this year. Follow us at Locked On A's on Twitter or whatever it's called now. And you can follow me. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. And today's episode is brought to you by our good friends over at FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Well, the final Oakland A's game was played, and they were swept by the Seattle Mariners, which wasn't great. I really was hoping they would get to 70 wins. But there was a lot of opportunities along the way to get a win here or win there. And I guess I saw the last ever Oakland A's win, which was the game on Thursday. That was the last time they won a game. Now that they have moved on. But yeah, this is um it's now done. I actually thought I know some people gave some people were not thrilled about one little thing that Ricky Henderson threw out the final the first pitch in the last game in Seattle, and he wore a uh, a jersey that was half A's and half Mariners. And he did play a little bit with the Mariners in 2000. In fact, scored the division series winning run on a walk-off bunt. Some people say, "Oh, he should have worn just an A's jersey." The Mariners credit that they saw that this was an opportunity to honor the A's, having the greatest Oakland A's player of all time. They had no uh, I guess, requirement to honor the A's at that moment. They could have had Ken Griffey Jr. They could have had Alvin Davis if they wanted to. And instead, they saw the significance of the game today and had the greatest and most recognizable Oakland A player of all time, who did have a cup of coffee with the Mariners. So good for them. Good for them. If you have trouble with a split uniform, you just I get it. It's been an emotional week. It's been an absolutely emotional week. And I really thought I was just distancing myself in these final three games. It was like the season ended with Kotze's speech, and everyone was at the Coliseum chanting "Let's go Oakland," having a good cry. And by the way, a lot of people wrote some nice comments about the video that I posted the other day, and we'll get to that in a second. But I will admit, when Langoliers hit the home run on Saturday night, I jumped up and doing a fist pump. And when Mason Miller blew the save, my heart kind of sank. And when the A's lost the game in extra innings, I said, "Damn it!" Because you can't forget that the main purpose of these teams that we follow and the players that we follow and everything like that is they're there to play a game to entertain us. So, that I found myself still getting into the ball game. So sue me. Absolutely, so sue me. But the A's were being no hit into the sixth inning on today, the final game, and I thought, wouldn't that be a wild way to finish the Oakland A's with a being no hit at? But I'm glad that they rallied. I'm glad that basically no one wanted to be the last one, and they scored a few. They got the tying run on base and everything like that. I admired that they showed a little bit of fight. And by the way, how angry are Mariner fans because they finished the season one game out of a wild card spot. Now they didn't have I believe it was the tiebreaker against Detroit they didn't have. But when you consider their season, 2 more wins here, 2 more a win here and a win there. 1 more win in the first half, 1 more win in the second half. This is a team that had a 10-game lead in the summer. And if they just had won 2 more games somewhere along the way, they'd be playing in the postseason with a pretty good pitching staff. Instead, they're playing golf. But it's now done. I was listening to the broadcast, the A's cast, while walking my dog, and listening. That's it. That's the end of the A's in Oakland. And I still don't know what their name is going to be next year. Are they just going to be the A's? Which I think that sucks. Are they going to be the Sacramento A's, which is what they should be if they're playing in Sacramento? That's what they should be called. But it was over. It was interesting. Like, it was a kind of like, yeah, that we said goodbye and they were still hanging around. They were, it's like when you say goodbye to someone and then you're driving home and you see them waiting at the bus stop and say, should I wave to them? Should we have another goodbye? Anyway, I want to just, a lot of you have watched the thing that I posted on Friday night or Saturday morning uh, about when I basically did my video log of me at the final A's game. I'm just going to read a couple of the comments there. Thomas Joseph 3488 said, "Well done, Sully. Made me quite melancholy. Great empathy for A's fans. My interest in baseball stems from the dynasty of the '70s. Joe Rudy's catch left and Gene Ten's intentional walk ruse on Johnny Bench. All classics from the '72 World Series. I lost my lifelong team, the Expos, 20 years ago. It stinks for both groups of fans and cities." Yeah, and I mentioned in the video to not be glib about taking a team away from a fan base. I remember in 2003, 2004, the final years of the Expos, and people were just saying, just move them. Just move them. What's the problem? Just move them. And just nobody really taking into account the Thomas Josephs of the world. Those fans were treated horribly by Loria and by Major League Baseball, and you were supposed to blame the fans for that? I still see lots of people who don't understand the whole issue here blaming Oakland A's fans. That really makes me mad. Thomas Kaczmarski says, "I'm not an A's fan. I grew up in a house where you didn't have a choice. You were a Yankee fan, period." I know lots of homes like that. However, as a baseball fan, my heart goes out to the people of Oakland. I started watching this podcast when this whole debacle began, hoping this could be avoided. Um, and then he said a few complimentary things to me. Then he said, "That man you met with the Kansas City stuff was not there for revenge. He's there with you because we're all with you. Every last baseball fan in the country is with you today." That was a reference. If you haven't seen it, I met an old Kansas City A's fan who had been there for the last Kansas City A's game. Um, and then Scott Campbell 9515 says, "This Reds fan is trying to watch this, but someone is nearby cutting onions. Be right back." Um, Thank you. TMXV-BG8CZ. That's my mother's name. Says, "Sully, I appreciate your heartfelt message, fandom, and coverage of the team for the past year. You're my first click of the day. Well, I'll check out YouTube stories. Big shout out for being a teacher, too." Thank you. We'll get to some of that. Prickly 10,000 says, "This was an unfortunate title card. Your team every day." Yeah, I know. I know. It was strange doing the intro for this show, being like, where we cover your Oakland A's. And there is no more Oakland A's. That's what it is to it. Then we come back. We're going to talk a little bit about the thing that is really going to hit the hardest, and it's going to come fast. Let's hear from our friends at FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's at FanDuel.com. FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Hey, thanks so much for making Locked On A's your first listen all season long. For your second listen, hey, check out more of me. I'm still going to be the host of the Locked On MLB podcast, where we talk about all of baseball all season long. And we got the good stuff coming up. We got the postseason right around the corner, as in a couple of days. So find Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Part of this is going to happen in the spring. The hardest part is that period of time in February and March when the promise of baseball is right around the corner. And the first time you see pitchers and catchers warming up in the spring training practice uniforms, and the first time you think, okay, it's going to be coming around. And opening day happens, which is always a celebration. And that's going to be tough, A's fans, that they won't be there. And it's going to be real tough throughout the summertime when you need that friend to be there. Now, for some of you, it may not be much of a difference. For some of you who don't go to the games regularly, you could listen to them in Sacramento. You can still follow the team if you want. I know it's not the same thing, but some of you are probably going to do that. Some of you are probably going to, yeah, I know you'll cringe when I say this, but some of you are probably going to adopt the Giants. But I wouldn't blame any of you for taking a year off. I wouldn't blame a soul who's an A's fan, who's devoted themselves to the green and gold, to say, do you know what? You're not going to get me this year. I'm not hanging around this year. I am going to take a year off. Nobody could blame you. Nobody. Nobody could blame you if you say, that's it. I do have a feeling you'll come back, whether it's the Giants, the A's, or some other team. Because if you're a baseball fan and you devote that type of energy, it's too much of a rhythm of the summer to just let go of it. It's too much of a companion. I can't fathom not following baseball in the summer. To me, that's just part of how a summer unfolds. I'll never forget how empty 1994 felt. And after August, when there was no more baseball, there was no more playoffs, there was no resolution. I will never forget how that just felt just empty and wrong and just not something just you didn't have a friend, you didn't have a resolution. And when baseball came back in 1995, when the strike was over and the lockout was lifted, I know a lot of people didn't come back right away. They were too angry. I was there opening day. I couldn't wait. I'm not going to punish myself. And you'll find out, and this is the thing I tried to stress. I didn't want any A's fans this year punishing themselves. If you wanted to go to an A's game, if you want to experience the A's, go. Please go. And I don't want to discourage you next year if you're like, if it's May or June and you want to take the hour and a half drive from the East Bay to Sacramento and to sit in the frying pan. I don't think anyone can blame you. You shouldn't be blamed. This is about your pleasure and the things that should make you happy. And there are plenty of players there that hopefully you can still feel a connection to. Mason Miller, Shea Langoliers, Brent Rooker should all still be there next year. And it will be weird seeing a friend in a new place. And of course, the situation they have there, sharing a minor league stadium with a minor league team with artificial turf that is going to be absolutely like a furnace. Next year, we all know is going to be nothing short of a disaster. But we also knew this year was going to be rough too. And there was a lot of fun to be had. No one is ever going to question your loyalty if you gave up on baseball, but no one should question your dedication to where you live if you say, do you know what? I'm going to go. I'm going to watch. This is a rough decade, and we're only halfway through it. I don't care where you fall in the political landscape. I don't care where you fall in your beliefs. This decade's been rough. And one thing we cannot do is deny ourselves pleasure, things that are good, positive, you know, that sort of thing. So let me just make this plea, A's fans. Do what gives you happiness next summer. If it's too painful for you to watch baseball, don't go to the movies, watch soccer, read a book, quilt. But if you feel the tugging of a friend that you don't have anymore, and you realize salvation is turning on the MLB app or making a quick sojourn to Sacramento, don't let anyone make you feel badly about that. This is too weird a time to feel badly about feeling good. Hey, let's hear from our good friends over at Game Time. Now, you know all about Game Time. Game Time is the place to get tickets. Maybe you'll be using it to get Sacramento A's tickets next year, but they have a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live event even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff and shows you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Game Time Picks as curation makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. You get a seat view, a panoramic view of your seat in the app before you buy. And the lowest price guarantee or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. Once again, if you like what I've done on the show, be sure to follow me at Locked On MLB. It's the flagship show for baseball here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. Which brings us to my first announcement here, and that is Bunni is going to be the new host of Locked On A's. I'm looking forward to seeing what Bunni is going to do. He's been a diehard A's fan since the early 80s, since the days of Billy Ball, and he is going to be taking over the reins and being your daily companion all this offseason and in their flagship their I guess their inaugural, that's the word I'm looking for, inaugural. I'm saying flagship too often. The inaugural season in Sacramento. And I'm still saying they're going to stay in Sacramento. I'm still saying Las Vegas it will say we're going to either negotiate with the Diamondbacks or wait for an expansion team. We're good. We'll wait for the next bus. And I think Sacramento will siphon off enough A's fans, and eventually someone with a giant big bag of money will wave it in front of John Fisher, and a stadium with a big canopy will be built in West Sacramento, and a new home will be found for the A's. I still think that's what's going to happen. I don't think they're going to ever step foot in Las Vegas except as a visiting team, but I've been wrong before, and I will be wrong again. But Ayad Bunni is going to be your new host, the new curator of Locked On A's, and I'm looking forward to that. And hopefully, I could be a guest on because I would love to come back on. But with that announcement comes this is it for me. This is my final episode as host of Locked On A's. In early April, I was hosting, as I did all season long, the Locked On MLB program. And the announcement of the Sacramento move had been made, and I saw no one was the we had lost our host of Locked On A's. There was no one to fill in, and I talked to Jeff Carr from who's from the coordinating everything at Locked On MLB. He's also the host of Locked On Reds, and I said, "Who's hosting Locked On A's? We got he said, we don't have a host yet." And I said, "Do you want let me do it for the next week? Let me do it for the next week. Someone needs to fill in." And I've forgotten more about A's history than most people know. So let's do it. I'll do both shows for about a week. That was early April. It's now the last days of September. And I was expecting to do 4 or 5 episodes. I did roughly 130 episodes. And I got to say, I had a lot of fun doing it. This was a lot of fun hosting this show. It was a lot of fun following a team that wasn't a championship team. No one, Ken Burns is not going to include the great histories of the 2024 A's in the next installment of baseball. They're not going to have a big montage except for maybe the saying goodbye. But this was a fun team. You take away May and June, they played competitive baseball and they won games. They beat teams like the Yankees and the Astros and the Phillies. And they played exciting ball. They lost a bunch of heartbreaking games. And they tried and they had some great walk-offs. And I got to witness the final moments there. And I got to share that moment with a lot of you. A lot of great A's fans were listening in and making this whole process a fun experience for me. And I got to find out there's a lot of fans in Las Vegas who don't like me because I have the audacity to say John Fisher's not someone you want to do business with. Somehow that turned into me insulting Las Vegas. Not 100% sure how that works out. Yes, I do, and I stand by this. I do think there are other markets that are better suited for Major League Baseball. I do think Nashville, Portland, and Charlotte, and maybe even Austin, when you consider they'd be the first major league team there, are all better fits than Las Vegas. I think there's a lot of pitfalls that could happen in Las Vegas. But I also say if that's where Major League Baseball wants to put a team, then I hope I'm wrong. And I hope it's a massive success. And for the people of Las Vegas, who I have no beef with, I hope it's someone other than Fisher running the damn team because nobody deserves to go through what the people of Oakland went through all these years. But for those of you who don't like me, I hope you start listening to me Locked On MLB. And for everyone else, be sure to follow me there and keep following me at Sully Baseball and know that I've had a blast. I when I was at the party, the last dive bar party after the A's game, I bumped into a couple of fans of Locked On A's, and we chatted, had a good time, and it was a lot of fun. And I'm glad that some of you are out there. First of all, recognized me. That was kind of fun. God, I wish my dad were alive to see that because he would have gotten a kick out of it. But it also, the consensus was you've liked that I've been here sharing this season with you. And let me just say, the feeling has been mutual. I've had nothing but fun doing this show. Doing 10 shows a week is a bit much, so I'm not going to do that next year. But I think you are going to be in good hands with Bunni, who's going to be the new host. So thanks so much for listening. Thanks so much for letting me be one of the people who is entertaining you in your ear pods and know that I had a blast doing it. So follow us here at Locked On A's on Twitter or whatever it's called now and on Instagram. Continue to follow me at Locked On MLB. I'm not going at this. It's still the same background. Same background. Maybe not. I won't be wearing the A's pullover as often, but who knows? Maybe I will. It's nice and comfortable. I wore this on a couple of really, really hot days. Let the record show. And you can follow me there, and you can follow me at Sully Baseball on Twitter or whatever it's called now. Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. Being Tom Sawyered into hosting Locked On A's, doing it for a week and sticking around for a season. This has been Locked On A's. I am no longer your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Thanks so much for a great year. And you can call me Sully.